evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching. Tonight, the latest on the city's management of the influx of asylum seekers to the community. Plus, the ice is gone, but recovery after the storm continues. It will take months for trees to bounce back. The community in Chatham-Kent is reacting after a cenotaph is vandalized with swastikas. And the latest of our inflation series, we'll hear from a woman on fixed income and her story of being on a budget. There's an influx of asylum seekers who have arrived here in Windsor, and a council committee wants to ask upper levels of government for help, saying the municipality can't do it alone. Dale Molnar has been on the story and joins us now live. Dale, bring us up to speed here.
Well, Kat, the committee that met today is called the Community Services Standing Committee, and it agreed to ask City Council to send a letter to the federal government asking it not to send any more refugee claimants here to Windsor hotels. And it's also asking the federal government to pair with the province to select a lead agency to help those refugee claimants with all their paperwork and the applications and things like that, to like their applications to Ontario Works. And they're also asking the province to set up a legal aid office for the refugees here. There are currently about 650 asylum seekers in 3 Windsor hotels. The federal government is paying for them to stay here, but when it comes to getting the help they need to apply for their refugee claims and other paperwork, they need an agency for that. The city says while Windsor is a welcoming community, it needs more help from upper levels of government.
Because they're in the province of Ontario, the government of Ontario has funding through the Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development to local settlement agencies for funding to support asylum claimants.
Some of the asylum seekers are staying at Matthew House in East Windsor. The executive director says it's important for the right agency to be chosen.
My request to the city is that in their request to the federal government that they specifically ask that a lead agency be appointed with deep experience with refugee claimants. Because again, refugee claimant work is different than other newcomer work.
Mike Morency made a pitch to the Standing Committee today along with Legal Assistance of Windsor, which says they need a special legal aid office to help the claimants. They want the province to help set that up.
We have a core group of local, dedicated refugee lawyers who have taken up the challenge, but they need support. We would, however, ask that the request include the provision of adequate legal services. Of the 4 centres in Ontario, Windsor is the only one that does not have a refugee law office with a dedicated legal staff within at least 1 hour's drive.
The Standing Committee added that to the recommendation they will send to City Council in about 2 weeks. Windsor-Tecumseh MPP Andrew Dowie can't make any specific promises, but is pledging to work with the city to try to get the province to act.
I am very happy to assist the city in any way in making the case to the ministry. And that request can be evaluated with respect to how the programs offered can handle kind of those exceptional requests of that nature.
And I'm joined by MP Eric Kazmierczak from Windsor-Tecumseh right now. And Mr. Kazmierczak, the City Council will probably be sending a letter to the federal government asking them not to send any more refugees here to the hotels, that they're all full up, to cap it to where it is right now. Also, they want a agency set up to help these folks. And also, well, the province will be being asked to do a legal aid office. You met with the mayor this morning, apparently. Can you bring us up to speed on where the federal government is in helping our city?
Yes, so this morning organized a meeting between Mayor Dilkens and also the immigration minister, Sean Fraser. And, you know, the minister recognized how incredibly generous and welcoming our community has been. Also recognized the challenges, obviously, that the influx of asylum seekers, the challenges and the pressures that brings as well. We are having conversations at the federal level how else we can support municipalities and provinces in their work to settle the asylum seekers. And at the same time, we're also working very closely with our American counterparts to really close the gap or the loophole within the Safe Third Party Agreement, which is really the reason why we're seeing such a huge influx of asylum seekers coming up from the United States through Roxham Road in Quebec and then being transported, obviously, to other places across the country. But this is an all-hands-on-deck approach, and we very much are listening to the municipality, our partners here on the ground, and we want to support them as much as possible.
Okay, thank you so much. MP Eric Kuzmarchuk here live on the riverfront. And back to you, Kat.
Thanks for this, Dale. That's CBC's Dale Molnar live for us tonight. An investigation is underway into the death of a man crossing from Canada into the United States. Police say the 45-year-old is believed to be from Mexico. He was crossing near Stansted, Quebec, when he was stopped by U.S. Border Patrol. They add his death doesn't appear to be suspicious. In January, another man was found dead after trying to enter the U.S. near the Roxham Road irregular crossing in Quebec. Some border state Republicans in Congress are now demanding action from the White House on migrants crossing into the United States from Canada. And as Katie Simpson tells us, they accuse the Biden administration of ignoring security on the Canadian border.
The brutal winter conditions are not enough to slow the surge of migrants crossing illegally from Canada into the U.S. Signs of desperate journeys mark the landscape. The issue has reached a point that Republican lawmakers say the Canadian border is a vulnerability.
But we do have an incredible number of people coming through that area. It's an incredible assault on the northern border.
According to U.S. Custom and Border Protection, more than 109,000 people were stopped by agents in the 2022 fiscal year, crossing from Canada into the U.S. That's up from nearly 28,000 in 2021.
Where is the outrage? Where's the outrage, America?
These lawmakers argue too many border agents have been sent south to deal with the surge in migration along the border with Mexico, leaving northern communities understaffed, becoming new targets for human smugglers.
Criminals in the cartels, they adapt and they get smart. They're one step ahead of us.
This is Joe Biden's border crisis. I haven't heard a question about what Joe Biden needs to do. We need to have a strong border security plan.
These Republicans see this as another opportunity to attack President Joe Biden's immigration policies, which is one of the favorite topics of the conservative voting base.
Frigid temperatures unable to slow the migrant surge.
It's already getting plenty of play on right-wing media outlets, including Fox News, the most watched cable news outlet in the United States.
While there is a border challenge to be dealt with, when an issue becomes heavily politicized, scoring political points often becomes the priority over finding solutions. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Police in Chatham-Kent are trying to find out who sprayed painted swastikas on the Chatham Cenotaph. Officers were made aware of the incident this morning. Some are calling these actions disturbing and say it's part of a trend of increasing anti-Semitism across Canada.
Hurt and outraged. That's like I said, that's a symbol of a great sacrifice that Canadians did for Canadians, and to be treated like that. And this is the second time within a year or so that that's been vandalized to the point where Public Works has had to fix it. It's outrageous. I don't understand the mindset behind it.
Whenever an incident happens, we are outspoken that it is unacceptable in our community and we do want action taken. I just don't think enough action has been taken, and that's why people continue to get away with this. It's not a surprise.
The ice is all gone and the electricity is back, but the trees are still recovering. All across Windsor, Essex, many tree limbs continue to litter front yards, with cleanup still happening across the region after last week's ice storm. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa looks at the state of our trees.
Many of these trees are 80 to 100 years old. Despite their age, they held up pretty well during last week's storm. That's according to a local forester. He was at Holiday Beach this week assessing the silver maples.
They've experienced many storms over their lifetime, and they often, limbs will break during those storms, and the tree is continually growing and continually healing itself. After spending about an hour here, I still have a little bit more to do. It's certainly not catastrophic.
The storm might not have been as bad as Drew expected, but driving around, it's obvious the ice storm still injured quite a number of trees in the region. This is my favorite tree in the city, but after the storm last week, it had seen better days. Though it's been a whole week since the storm, the city of Windsor is still in cleanup mode. It can't say the exact number of downed or damaged trees, but said it received more than 1,000 calls for service, half of which were urgent. Post-cleanup, it said it's going to do an assessment to look at how the city's tree cover was impacted. In 2019, 19% of Windsor was covered by trees. According to Giroux, a similar study hasn't been done in the county, but he doesn't believe the storm significantly impacted the canopy. At least 3 at Holiday Beach need to be removed, and 24 others were damaged and need to be trimmed. Giroux advises against tapping maple trees for sap right now, particularly if they've been severely damaged. IRCA says it will likely spend the week cleaning up.
If we visit these trees again in July and August, you'll see that where these limbs broke away from the main stem, that the healing process has begun.
He recommends homeowners with damaged trees get an arborist in to see whether the tree needs to be trimmed or removed.
If we leave a limb in a jagged condition, it's hard for that tree to heal itself around that jagged edge. So it's always good to trim your trees and prune it back to the main stem.
So here is what my favorite tree in the city looks like today. It's all cleaned up. It's just going to take a little bit more time for it to heal. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
This week, we've been introducing you to people in Windsor who are trying to live with the pressure inflation is putting on their budgets. Earlier this week, you met a first-time homeowner. Yesterday, a student. Tonight, to cap off our series, I want to introduce you to a 67-year-old woman living on a fixed income. She breaks down her expenses and some of the things she misses now that she's on a tight budget.
Here's what I spend a month living in Windsor as a 67-year-old. We spend $655 a month on rent, but it's subsidized. We spend around $400 a month on groceries. What we spend on medical expenses per month kind of varies, but it's roughly around $150. $65 a month for the kibble, and about another $40 for the wet food. We don't spend anything on eating out. It's been cut totally. We spend about $40 a month on gas for our car insurance, which is $135, I think. We do a lot of things till payday. You get paid, you pay your bills, you get your groceries, and you wait till next payday. You don't go to the movies, you don't go shopping, you don't buy new shoes, you don't do these things. You don't even go to the dentist because there's no coverage for going to the dentist. And so that creates other problems. I lost teeth. I couldn't afford to go to the dentist, and by the time I found out about Ontario's dental plan for seniors, they had to be pulled. There was no other option. It had been too long. But it sure would be nice to be able to go to a movie once in a while. It sure would be nice to go to a concert once in a while. Once in a while, not every day, not every month even. Once in a while it would be really nice, and there's no way that's going to happen. So we have to kind of make our own fun, and that's challenging, especially at our age. It makes me feel fenced in because I can't work more hours. I can't sew some clothes. There's no way I can change our financial situation because it's fixed. It's the way it is. And so we have to fit everything we need in life into that monthly allotment. But we're lucky we get pensions. There are people who don't even get that. And I can't imagine what they're going through. But it's hard not to hurt. It's hard not to be human, not to have a birthday party, not to have an anniversary party, not to, and then buying gifts for grandkids and things that are having birthdays and all that. That's really a hard thing for me because I'm a giver. And not to be able to do that really hurts.
The calls continued today for a public inquiry into foreign interference in recent Canadian elections. Today there was a committee hearing into the matter. The Prime Minister's National Security and Intelligence Advisor testified that China poses the greatest threat. Still, she questioned whether a public inquiry would shed much light.
A public inquiry will have the same limitations that this committee does, in that we cannot talk about national security information in a public forum.
When asked late today if he would call a public inquiry, the Prime Minister did not answer directly.
I remember that time that you told me, you said love is touching souls. Surely you touch mine, 'cause why do you pours out of me in these lines from time to time?
A classic there. A Canadian legend is being honored in Washington tonight for her lifetime achievements. Joni Mitchell will receive the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Popular Song. The singer from Fort Macleod, Alberta, is the first Canadian to receive it. You're watching CBC Windsor News live at 6. We'll leave you with Joni to take us to break, and coming right after that, your full weather forecast with Colette Kennedy. Stay with us.
Oh, I would still be on my feet.
Colette Kennedy is with us now for a look at weather. Colette, I wore my winter coat to work today, but I really should have left it at home because I got overheated.
Yeah, into the afternoon hours with the sun and the warming, pretty great.
It was amazing.
Yeah, and it is the first day of meteorological spring, so there's that too. And how about some bragging rights? Let me show you the daytime highs. All right, Windsor 9, but hey, it goes to you, Harrow. 10 degrees today. Not just the hot spot in Ontario, but the hot spot in Canada. So congratulations there. And just having a look at where our current readings are sitting. So 5 degrees, Chatham, Kent, Sarnia at 4, and Windsor at 6. Still very mild conditions, holding on to the sun. Well, okay, so we're not quite there anymore, as we'll be seeing that setting shortly, but just taking a look at the sustained winds. Those fairly light, a nice evening on our hands. But what happens through the overnight is we have to start setting our sights on what's coming a little bit later this week. A few of these ingredients that are coming together. Some very cold air that's diving deep into Southern California, into spots they don't usually see the snowfall, into the southern plains. This will move and meets up with moisture from the Gulf, and that all comes together. And then as it starts to, you can still see the two components here, but watch over Texas. This all starts to come together as it pushes into Oklahoma. It heads towards the Ohio Valley, and then what's to come? Yes, it will be coming towards us for Friday. So tomorrow is more of a breather day, a day to get errands done and those kinds of things. And then we see this moving in after the lunch hour towards 3 p.m. I do think we could see a mix. If it stays as snow, we're talking about significant amounts, 10, 15, 20 centimeters. But this track is going to be really important, and there's still so many variables here. So just giving you kind of the timeline for now. As we look ahead towards Saturday, we'll see that moving away. Eventually, we'll try and carve through some of those clouds too. But just one perspective puts us over that 10 centimeters of snow. We're going to watch carefully the north shore of Lake Erie because these areas, you know, this pattern this winter, we get into that mixing, and that brings down those accumulations. Either way, it's going to be nasty for travel on Friday in the afternoon and evening and overnight. Now, overnight here tonight, -2, and some patchy fog development, so watch out for that towards the morning hours because those winds are lighter. 6 degrees the high. I think that's not so bad, even if it's not as warm as today. And the temperatures do remain on the mild side. It's when they dip as we get towards night that we're going to be watching that so carefully, Katarina.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, if you were traveling during the March break and flying out of Pearson, we have some flight info for you. Stay with us. More travel disruptions are coming to Canada's busiest airport, Toronto's Pearson International. But this time, these are planned. If you have a flight booked around the March break or for this summer, you might want to keep an eye out for cancellations. The airport authority says it's putting hard limits on the number of arrivals and departures, trying to smooth out service during peak travel times. But as Chris Glover tells us, not everyone is on board.
Mountains of unclaimed luggage, stranded passengers sleeping wherever. Pearson International Airport has picked up a bad rep lately, at one point ranked as the world's worst airport for flight delays.
It was a chaos there, man. It was like, I would say you watch TV and you don't expect these things to happen, you know, and you see it and you don't know until you actually experience it.
Robert Williams and his family stopped over in Toronto last December en route from Edmonton to Orlando for Christmas. After multiple delays, they were stuck at the airport for a week before finally catching a flight back to Alberta. He blames both Air Canada and Pearson.
They need to overhaul everything there.
Now the Greater Toronto Airports Authority says improvements are coming in time for the March break rush. They include hard limits on the number of flights in any given hour and hourly caps on international passengers arriving and those departing to the States. The GTAA says those slot measures strike a balance between airline commercial interests and capabilities of the entities across the entire airport ecosystem.
They've seen what the schedules are. And they're saying, whoops, we've got too many planes coming in here, too many passengers, we have to cut it back.
This aviation expert says it's a smart step, but some would-be travelers will be disappointed.
You know, I think that it's those passengers whose flights are now going to be canceled because of the fact that the airport cannot accommodate that volume is going to be a problem.
Air Canada says we work with our industry partners to meet the requirements of airports. This includes, as in this case, adapting our schedule as required, which we have done. Air Canada says we always notify customers directly of any changes. Some travelers at Pearson are eager to see the impact.
The proof's in the pudding. We'll see.
Passenger Salma Mohammed says a solution for baggage is her priority.
I think they should look at why people lose their luggages, as in like limiting them from actually going to their destination.
The GTAA says baggage is a shared responsibility with airlines, and an outside firm is reviewing the airport system.
And it has to be better, because no one wants to travel to Toronto anymore. More people are now going through Montreal if they can.
As for that review of the airport's baggage system, the GTAA says that is expected to be completed this spring. And in the meantime, the GTAA says that it is already assessing training, staffing, and technology to see if there are any other changes that they can make right away. Chris Glover, CBC News, Mississauga.
Artists often display their work in galleries or museums, but an Edmonton artist got a commission from Canadian actor Simu Liu through an unexpected connection on social media.
So I pretty much randomly messaged Simu or commented on one of his posts on Instagram on New Year's Eve, and then the next morning I noticed that he had liked the comment, he liked a few of my posts, and then he messaged me himself on the DM saying, hey, I need some art. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I thought he first wanted like a painting, but then he's like, oh, I have a big wall in my home gym, so can you come and do a custom mural?
And just like that, Hamid flew down to Los Angeles to paint this massive mural on Simu Liu's home gym wall. Hamid painted basketball star Kobe Bryant, an anime character, and Simu Liu's Marvel character, Shang-Chi. He did it in 3 days. Hamid says he has worked with other actors and also did a piece for Edmonton Oiler Connor McDavid. Simu Liu is host of the Juno Awards, taking place in Edmonton on March 13th. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For more news, go to cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.